The Eiffel Tower at Kings Island serves as a majestic symbol. Hello, everyone. I'm Don Helbig alongside Ryan Sir, and this is Tower Topics.
Tower Topics is a podcast by Kings Island fans for Kings Island fans because that's who we are and that's who we care about.
So, Ryan, the Eiffel Tower at Kings Island. Been there since the park opened. It serves kind of as the caretaker. It's been the dominating landmark that defines the essence of Kings Island and Warren County. Can you imagine the park without it?
I don't think that the park would be the same without it. I think that it's you mentioned the caretaker and stuff. It's one of the first things you can see when you're driving up 71 in my case. And if you're driving around Mainville or Lebanon or any of the other neighboring cities, if you're lucky, you can see the Eiffel Tower in the distance. I think it's a majestic symbol for the park, and I could not think of a better one.
Yeah, I think when you look at the Eiffel Tower too, and you're talking about attractions throughout the industry, I would say only the Magic Kingdom with Cinderella's castle, Disneyland with the castle. Those might be the only two attractions that have had more photographs taken over the last 50 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's you're starting to. There are a lot of different. Disney tries to create these icons, so I think Spaceship Earth is another one that was probably photographed a lot. But when we talk about like Disney's Hollywood Studios, they weren't sure if the Chinese Theater or if Tower of Terror was supposed to be the symbol because they use both. And then for years they had the Chinese theater covered up, but for Kings Island, it's never been deviated from. It's the Eiffel Tower. That's what we named our podcast after Tower Topics, obviously. But the Eiffel Tower was an engineering marvel. It was designed and fabricated by Intamin AG of Zurich, Switzerland. The 450-ton structure was erected by Southern Ohio Fabricators Incorporated. The installation costs and equipment expense exceeded $1 million, showcasing the engineering prowess behind this impressive attraction. Imagine trying to build that for $1 million in today's world.
Oh, you wouldn't be able to do it. So, Ryan, when you first saw the Eiffel Tower, you came into Kings Island, your first visit, it's right there when you come through the
hmm
gates. What were your thoughts?
So, my earliest memory of the Eiffel Tower, with my first visit, was I remember looking for it out the car window. And I think I started intently looking around like 275. So I was staring out the window for like 10 or 15 minutes before it hit. And then I saw it. I knew exactly what it was, but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like this giant beacon welcoming you home is the way that I see it. Do you remember your first encounter?
My first encounters were the construction phase. My dad would take us uh, up. You could drive the road right past the park at that point in time. It kind of went right by the front gate, and you could look in and see it kind of being built. So we would go every couple of weeks, and I would see the progress that way. But in coming to the park for the first time as a guest, coming up 71 toward the park, you could see it a lot further out at that time because there weren't all the buildings and the trees and everything that you see now on 71.
Right.
So it was more dominating. It wasn't. Now you almost have to get on top of it. Taking the Kings Island exit before you see it. You could see it, way further back at that point in time. So we would play a game to see who could be the first person to spot the Eiffel
hmm
Tower, and that became, something we did throughout the 70s into the 80s, and then everything around us started to grow up, and it wasn't the same kind of thing. Everybody still plays that game. I think a lot of families in that play that game. Can you find the Eiffel Tower? You can see it coming from the north a little bit better driving down that way from like Columbus and that you're coming toward. You can see it in the background and up on the hill and that when you're driving down 71 that way. But coming from the south, from Cincinnati and coming up, uh, you have to get a little closer to the park now to see it.
Yeah, because that Festo building got built, it totally killed the view. Um, it's a one-third scale replica of the original Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. It's weird calling it the original Eiffel Tower, the real Eiffel Tower in Paris, France. Um, it's kind of cool. So we do know that the Eiffel Tower was originally planned for Cincinnati's Coney Island. And was that when they were gonna put the Eiffel Tower in? Were they gonna do? I mean, first of all, was it the same model? I know that Intamin, that's a lattice Paris Tower, I think is the name of the model. But were they going to do that same model to your knowledge?
It was, to my knowledge, it was going to be the same model, and they were talking about putting it where the Lost River was located. So there would have been a little bit of controversy over that because the Lost River was one of everyone's favorite attractions there. But once they started plans for Kings Island, they held off and wanted that to be the centerpiece of the new park.
Yeah. So, were they looking at it and then just like ordered it out of a catalog? Because it makes sense at Kings Island. It's International Street to make the heart of it the Eiffel Tower.
Well, Gary Walks, his father and Gary, they managed Coney Island, and Gary had traveled around to different
Hmm.
parks, trying to get ideas and things. And he always liked fountains,
Yeah.
and he was struck by the Eiffel Tower. So obviously Kings Island, they have a fountain, they have an Eiffel Tower. So he was into what you'd see out in Europe at a lot of different places, and uh, so it would have been interesting to see it go into Coney Island. They could have dismantled it and moved it to Kings Island had they not made that decision any earlier.
I bet it would still be there in Coney Island if they built it there. I think it would have been too expensive to dismantle, and that and Sunlight Pool would have been what the carryovers from the old Coney Island, which would have been a really cool location for it being on the river.
Oh, it would have. It definitely would have been a great location.
Yeah. So from the top of the Eiffel Tower, you can see up to what about 18 miles into the region.
18 miles, yeah, on a clear day, you can see 18 miles out into the region. It's a fascinating view. A lot of our listeners, they've gone up in the Eiffel Tower. They know, how good the view is up there. Great photo opportunities of some of the rides at Kings on the Coney Mall area. You can get some fantastic shots from up there. Diamondback, the splashdown, you can get some great shots of that. Uh, I always tried to go up there, at least a couple of times a
Hmm.
week, just to check it out. And the different type of photo opportunities you had, like in the early morning,
Hmm.
the river behind the Coney Mall area of the park, you would have the steam and everything, the fog coming up off the river. Those were some great shots in the early morning hours.
Yeah, I always enjoyed that too because you can see exactly where the river is just based on like it zigzags and everything just on the fog that's sitting on there. But yeah, I mean, if anything, the Eiffel Tower would be a great place to go and cool off. It's always breezy up there. So on the hottest days, you can go up there and actually get some relief. But I always thought it would be cool if they had like a restaurant or something up there. To your knowledge, was that ever explored for either for the top or for the 50 foot?
It was talked about for the 50-foot, but there's a lot of logistical issues involved with that.
Was there ever talk of reopening the steps or the 50 foot to your knowledge?
Not once they closed it down, no, not unless it was going to be like a temporary thing, or there would have been a food opportunity up there, some VIP experience. They've talked about that, but it's just a lot of logistical, issues with that. You got a lot of cables and things, laying out, and um, just not ideal in today's world to do that.
Now, they closed the 50 foot and the steps as a result of staffing, correct? In like the early 1990s?
I wouldn't say no. It was still there through like '87 is when it was the last year that you could go up in the 50-foot level, but it was just you had kids running up and down the steps. It was kind of like a safety issue, I think, in that respect. You couldn't, watch everybody.
Mhm.
So it was better just to close it off and then just, the only access was by elevator.
So what was the intention with the 50 foot? Like, was there a reason why they made a lower level that did not have elevator access?
Just to have different levels that you could view the park and an opportunity to walk instead of getting in the elevator. You could walk up to that level.
Yeah. So, just some fun facts about the Eiffel Tower. The average speed of the elevators is an impressive 10 feet per second, allowing guests a swift journey to the top in just about 30 seconds. It has a staggering 15,000 bolts that hold the Eiffel Tower structure firm, emphasizing the meticulous construction and stability. And there are 410 steps leading to the top of the tower. So awesome. Too bad you can't take the steps. I don't know how much I would, but it would be nice to have that option, right?
I thought about it, back in like the '70s and '80s that it would be fun to walk the steps, but as I got older, it was a challenge just to walk up to the 50-foot level.
Yeah, I think that would be a one-time thing, or you take the elevator to the top and then walk down. That would probably be
That'd
way
be
more
easier.
fun. Okay, so moving on to the listener question. This question's from Henry. If you were to enhance the theming or story of any area of the park besides Action Zone, which area would it be and why? Don, let's take you first.
Well, there's two parts to my answer here. The first one would be de-theming, and I would eliminate Oktoberfest because there's really nothing in Oktoberfest. They have a fest house that is everything but
Mm,
German themed, right? Um, Rides, you got the Viking Fury, just a couple rides. So I would just kind of annex that into Adventure Port and make all of that area. But I would look to Rivertown. I think you want to bring back, if it was me, I'd bring back the feel, the vibe that it had when the park opened in the 70s and make it a real, true, authentic Rivertown area.
I like that too. I would make Rivertown kind of like the loggers run at Dollywood. I really like that irrigation thing that they have, like the when the water runs through all the wooden kind of pipework above heads. I think that's super cool. Um, I can think of a million different things. The Oktoberfest, I forget there is an Oktoberfest most of the time because it's so incredibly irrelevant. Um, Coney Mall, I do really like. One thing that I really wish that they had was and they do this seasonally, but I wish they had strung like festoon lighting overhead, so it was more of like a carnival. I think that would be really cool.
That would add a lot at night. I think it would.
Yeah. So I think that would be kinda cool, but, yeah, I think, Rivertown would be my number 1 choice. Just I mean, not you don't have to get crazy with it, but just make it just a little bit more in line with the theme, so, thank you for that question. That is a good question, Henry, but, hey, I'm Ryan Sir along with Don Helbig, and this is Tower Topics.